Welcome to this line out converter installation video. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to install the LC7i, an active line out converter in my 22 WRX GT. I started in the 22 and I ended in this car right here, which is the 2025 WRX TS with the Harman Kardon sound system. Now, there's specific nuances to that sound system. So if you have that car, even if you're not installing this, there's going to be some information there that might prove helpful if you're trying to upgrade the sound system in your particular car with a Harman Kardon sound system. This is video number 2 in my 22 plus WRX sound system upgrade series. In the first one, we installed an amp wire kit, and in the next one, we'll go ahead and install that amplifier and the subwoofer and wrap it all up. So here we have the LOC I chose, the LC7i. I have a dedicated video reviewing this LOC in detail, so please check that out if you wish. I'll link it up above here. In this video, I'm focusing more on the installation of this LOC in my 2022 WRX with the Harman Kardon sound system. This video is part of that installation series. The packing of this LC7i is very simple, and you essentially just get the LOC in the box. If you're following along, remember to always disconnect the negative battery terminal before working on anything electrical in a car. A 10mm wrench makes short work of that. For ease of access, I also removed the passenger seat. There are 4 very visible 12mm bolts that need to be removed, as well as some connectors that need to be unplugged underneath. Be careful with these. Once that's done, we can carefully angle the seat and take it out of the car. So now that I removed the seat, I can kind of show you exactly what I intend to do here. All right, and then we're very much in the exploratory planning phase of this installation. All right, so this is the plug that goes into the factory amplifier. This is the Harman Kardon factory amplifier right here. This plug has all of the signals that we need. It has the power signals and it has all of the speaker signals coming to it. What I want to do is tap into those signals to drive a line out converter that is going to be driving the amplifier that we're going to install in the trunk. What I have here is a line out converter that I'm going to use, and my plan is to install it above this amplifier right here. There's plenty of room under the seat for it to slide forwards and backwards. I don't want to put it against it because I still want the amplifier to breathe and I want this to breathe. So my initial thought is to grab some of these brackets, right? It's got screws on the sides. Take the screws off, put the bracket in its place, and then put this mounted on top right there. Okay, that should give it enough room underneath for it to breathe. It's going to float, and it's going to be accessible when you slide the seat forward from the back if you need to do any adjustments. And then the reason why we got this bad boy right here, so that we don't have to tap into the factory wires right here. The factory cable is going to plug into here, and then this is going to take its place in the amplifier plug right there. And then we're going to take and tap into the wires of the pigtail instead of the wires coming from the car, so that we're not tapping into factory wires. So that's the only reason why we got this right here. Otherwise, we could just take this plug right here and tap into those wires directly. So if you don't want to tap into factory wires, I would recommend you get this plug right here. I think it is a bit overpriced for what it is, but unfortunately, it's the only one that I could find that actually serves this purpose for this particular plug. So that's what I ended up getting. So this right here is simple, high quality speaker wire, and that's exactly what I'm going to be using right here. I have a pinout diagram of all of the pins on this harness. So if I needed to reference that, I have it there. All these cables are going to go just like this. They're going to get tapped into all of these right here, whatever corresponds to the speakers right here. So they're all going to be connected to here, and then they're going to go from there to the input of the line out converter right here, right? All these right here. At this point, we are only loosely preparing the harness. I like to ensure everything is working properly before fully committing. In order to make the harness smaller and to more easily install the shrink tubing, I'm going to simply cut all wires down the middle. As a reminder, everything you see me using is linked in the video description, so be sure to check that out. I'm going to fully connect the power and ground wires in order to feed power to the LC7i using a simple inline splice. Soldering is always the best, most foolproof method of joining 2 wires, and I always recommend it, although it does take a little bit of practice to get right. In this case, we simply intertwine and twist the wires tightly together. Then we press the soldering iron against the splice like you see me doing here. We'll do that just until the strands are nice and hot, and then we'll sneak the solder between the wires and the soldering iron tip, allowing the solder to melt into the strands. Of course, we'll cap this off with some shrink tube for a nice clean installation. If you absolutely cannot solder, they do have T-taps that you can get, which I will link in the description as well. If you're setting your gains using the built-in gain setting circuitry of the LOC, this is what your harness will ultimately look like once all of the signals are tapped into and the wires are all soldered. since I'll be using an O-scope to set my gains, I am only connecting the ground and power wires, as you'll see momentarily. Before we get much further, we have to ensure the dip switches are configured correctly. I'm gonna make sure these two channels are summed, which they are. Since I'm using the GTO, the Great Turn On functionality, I'm gonna make sure that that is selected and set to on right here. And finally, I'm gonna defeat the auto mode with this switch since I have inputs going into every channel. So I'm going to show you with this O-scope right here, this digital O-scope, exactly what's going on and how I'm going to set the gains. So why did I choose the LC7i versus a cheap line out converter? One big reason is the AccuBass, which is going to restore that rolled off bass that I'm actually going to show you in the O-scope right here, where that's happening and give you proof that it's actually happening in these cars. When the car starts rolling off the bass, this takes over and restores the bass so that if you're listening to music loud and you have an aftermarket sound system, that your amplifier is actually getting a full signal at high volumes, not that rolled off signal that's meant to protect the speakers that are installed here from the factory. Another reason is I'm summing the mids, highs, and lows. Channel 3 right here is the sub. Okay, channel 2 is my front speakers, and these are my tweeters, right? So I'm taking those three signals and I am summing them, and that's the reason why I'm going to choose to use the main output here. So I'm taking all three of these, putting them together to get a complete signal, and the reason why I'm doing that, it's because I'm going to be installing an epicenter next to the amplifier, and the epicenter requires a full signal, which is going to come out of the main output right here. So I'm going to test and set my gains on the main output right here, and that main output is going to go all the way to the trunk where I am going to install an amplifier and an epicenter and drive my speakers. This is the factory amplifier right there, and I've unplugged all of the inputs going to all the speakers so that I'm not blowing out my ears or the speakers while I'm doing these tests that I'm about to show you. So I'm using a thumb drive here. I'm plugging in my thumb drive. That's where I have all my test tones, and that's where I play my music out of. So a couple things to set this up. I'm going to go to my settings and verify that my sound settings are as I listen to them in this particular car. So I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to go to audio and sound customization. So first of all, it's balanced and faded properly right in the center, right where we want it. Then the equalizer, it's how I listen to it. So I'm going to leave it like that because I don't want to set my gains with this turned down because I don't listen to it turned down. So I'm going to X that out of there. I'm going to go with negative 2.5 decibels, 1000 hertz tone right there. I'm going to set it to repeat. All right, so now that's playing at 1000 hertz tone through the speakers, right? I have my volume all the way down, so I'm going to set the volume to about 75%, somewhere around this range right here, and I'm going to set my gains at this level. I very rarely go above that anyways. So about 75%, that gives you a little wiggle room either way after you set your gains. So this is set up now. It's playing the tone. You don't hear it because the speakers are unplugged right now. So let's see what this O-scope is showing. You can see here that the O-scope kind of came alive. It's reading the 1000 hertz tone, but that's information that we can't really see too well. This particular O-scope, all I have to do is hit the auto range so that it displays it in a way that we could actually understand. So just wait a second after hitting that auto range button. And there we go. Now we have a wave that we can actually understand. So if I turn the volume down, you should see this starting to move. Okay, perfect. I'm playing with the volume right now, so I have it 18%, 20, 21%, okay, all the way up to about 30, 75%. I'm gonna do auto range again. Okay, so we have a nice clean wave right there, as you can see. And I'm actually already maxed out on the output level of the channel. So that just means that the factory head unit is not clipping the signal. It's sending a nice clean signal. And it actually sends that signal all the way. So like right now, the volume is maxed out right now. I'm gonna hit auto range again, right? So like the volume is maxed out and I'm still getting a nice clean signal, and with the output of the LC7i line-out converter, it's nice and clean as well. So I know that neither the LC7i or the head unit is clipping the sound coming out. Okay, so I'm sending out a nice clean unclipped signal out of the main output. But I do want to do another test here. I'm going to go ahead and set it back to 75%, and I'm going to go ahead and play my 40 hertz tone and see what we see here. All right, so the wave obviously changed, so I'm gonna auto range it again. So now there you have a nice clean wave at 40 hertz coming out. I'm at 70%, right? So I want to show you something, right? I'm gonna turn this down so you can see the wave actually going down in amplitude. I'm at 20 right now. Right about when I get to about 26, which is about 75% on my stereo, the wave stops increasing in amplitude. That just tells me that the system is rolling off the bass. So it's not increasing the bass after that volume. So that's your rolled off bass right there. So the way we're gonna set that Acubase, right? We're right now exactly where the system starts rolling off the bass. So about 75%. Now I know that as I increase the volume, right, the wave, the amplitude is not changing, right? The voltage is not changing. It's staying about the same at this frequency, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set the threshold so that that starts increasing. So I'm gonna go to the right down here on the threshold until I can see the wave clipping. Oh, that happened right away, right? Okay, and then I'm gonna go to the level and lower it so that the wave doesn't clip anymore. Okay, that looks pretty good to me. Nice clean wave. So here I have my properly set gains on the system, right? The output level is maxed out because the signal is so clean coming out of it. So I'm maxing that out. The Acubase is set properly so that when I hit that point where the system starts rolling off the bass, this takes over and adds a little bit of voltage to it and restores that bass that the system would have otherwise taken out. And now that we verified everything is working as it should and that the gains are set, we can proceed to button everything up. This particular LOC does have a maximized light that can be used to set the gains if you don't have an oscope or a multimeter. Essentially, the light will turn on right before the LOC starts clipping, letting you know to turn it down slightly. If you want to set your gains with a multimeter, I'll link to my detailed video covering that, and I will also link it in the video description. Regardless of what you use to set your gains, when properly set, that maximized light will blink periodically when you have your volume turned up, and that's normal. As you can see here, I cut these wires to the proper length and I am wrapping the harness in Tessa tape, which I will link in the video description. This makes for a clean, professional looking installation. Keep in mind you can install the LOC wherever it's most convenient to you. For instance, if you have room in the trunk, it can be installed back there. This just happens to be where I settled in my own installation. Okay, so I wanted to show you what I got going on here. I'm about to put the seat back and I'm essentially done with the installation of the line out converter. And it came out very clean and nice looking. So as you can see right here, the line out converter is above the amplifier. One thing to keep in mind if you do something similar to this is to ensure that there's enough room for airflow between the amplifier and the LC7i. There's plenty of room right here. There's a really large gap right there. So air can still flow and neither of these will get overheated. The way that I did it, it's solid. It's not going anywhere. It's nice and clean. You have the RCA cable coming this way and it's just going to run on the inside and then over here through the door. But I'm about to put the seat back, so I wanted to show you exactly what it looks like before I put the seat back. So there you go. So everything you just saw was on my 2022 WRX GT. And shortly after doing that installation, I decided to trade it in for this car right here, which is the 2025 WRX TS. Thankfully, the sound system and the electronics is all the same. Okay, so nothing changed. And if anything, it gave me an opportunity to kind of show you an alternate way of doing it and to elaborate a little bit more on the Harman Kardon sound system. What we're trying to accomplish with installing a line out converter like the LC7i is to take all those speaker level signals and convert them into a low level signal that an amplifier can better use. There's other reasons that I already went over, but that's essentially it. The complication with the Harman Kardon sound system is that the high level signals that are coming from the head unit are actually being processed by the amplifier, the built-in amplifier. So they're no good from the head unit. If you were to take those high level signals coming from your head unit right now and try to run an LOC or an amplifier with them, you would not be able to. The volume would not work. It's not a signal that they would be able to understand. That signal is actually being processed by the amplifier right here and then sent out to the speakers. So we have to grab those signals after the amplifier, not before, which is what we did right here, right? So this is a little bit different because I went and cut it again and did some other testing, but this is the same harness that we were just looking at right here and the same line out converter. Okay, and I'm gonna show you a different way that I'm gonna install this right now. Now, another thing that's unfortunate about this system is the fact that none of the signals that are on this 30-pin harness, this one right here, right, none of those signals actually have an accessory signal, a 12-volt accessory signal, which is a signal that only has 12 volts present when the car is on, not when the car is off, so that you don't run down your battery. Thankfully, right, the signal is present here on the plug that is right next to the 30-pin plug, okay? That's a whole separate harness that costs like 20 bucks, and I did not want to spend $20 for one wire. So what I did here is that I simply tapped into that particular wire. This is pin number 12. Pin number 12 is the one that's by itself over here. This is the 24-pin harness right here, and pin number 12 is the one that's carrying the accessory. So I simply tapped into it and put some tape on there, and now I'm gonna put some Testa tape around it to make it look nice and professional, and that's gonna be it. This is gonna be installed right here. The 12-volt signal that's coming in right here is gonna get added right there to the line out converter, and then the line out converter is going to spit out that same signal that I'm going to run all the way to the trunk right here. Initially, as I said before, I was going to use the GTO function of the LOC, and it wasn't working right. Full disclosure there, I've never trusted those technologies anyways, so I'm upset at myself that I even tried. The regular remote in does work just fine, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run the accessory cable from right here, tap these two together, plug them into the remote in of the LOC so that this turns on when it's supposed to, and I'm going to carry that same 12-volt signal all the way to the trunk where my amplifier will sit, and that same 12-volt signal is going to tell that amplifier to turn on or off whenever it needs to. So there you have it. Now you've seen two ways of doing this installation. The only other way that I briefly considered is just running all of those speaker wires all the way to the trunk and just installing the LC7i in the trunk with the rest of the stuff. Space is limited back there too, so I opted against that. Not only that, but I would have had to run a lot of wires, and it would have made for a very bulky bundle of cable. So I decided to just leave it all here, and then now all I have to run to the rear is that right there, which again is just the 12 volts and then the RCA signal cable. So that's not going to be a bad run, but right now this is where it's staying at. So in the next video, I'm going to finish the installation, right? I'm going to show you how to run the rest of these cables all the way to the trunk, how to configure your sub, and how to install the amplifier, and show you the entire setup completed. So I'm going to call it. I hope you got something from this video. Be sure to check out the other videos in this series. Drop me a note, leave me a like, let me know what you think. Take care.